Welcome to the Jamodi podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders, so let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
But here's what I've found, whether it's an elite performer or the kid who's struggling, Matt, these two things are really, really good. One, almost every coach or trainer, once you get it right, they go on to the next progression. Or if you get it wrong, they make you do it again. Oh, that one was wrong. Do it again. Before we go, oh, it was wrong. Do it again. So you know what I did? And I'm not the smartest guy in the world. So I try to, and again, goes back to our be better, be different phrase and trying to create different competitive advantages. But I'm like, hold on. If everyone does this, let's do the opposite. Because usually when you follow the crowd, you get lost in it. Like we've all heard that. You follow the crowd, you're probably going to get lost in it. I don't want to get lost in the crowd. So when a player finally got something right and it was awesome and we're high-fiving, now what we do from Damian Lillard to Anthony Simons, Jacoby Walter, who played at Baylor, he's flying to Portland today. He'll be here with us tonight to shoot. I make them do it again. We want to repeat what we do well. Like that was awesome. Do it again. Now we start to build confidence. Now we're different than all these other people who just, all right, you got it right, next thing. And players love that because they could feel it biomechanically. They could feel it with their body and ball. And then I'm like, do it again and repeat that feeling. Boom, they do it again. Repeat it again. Now all of a sudden, maybe we got 3 or 4 extra reps. And yeah, it took 2 minutes off the clock, but the player's confident. The player's more reliable with their skill level. The player's moving better. We want to do that. The other thing we've done, and literally, and this is why Dame makes fun of me about changing his plan, when we have a focal point, at least one main area. So like one of them for Dame this offseason has been making more mid-range shots. And he doesn't have to shoot a ton of them. We know analytically it's not a great shot, but we think last year he just left so many of them on the table. Like he got to his spot around the free throw line or the elbow, and it was in and out, or he missed it short. And those are shots with the way him and Giannis get defended. He has to be able to take and make those in tough games or in the playoffs. Like those are the only shots he's getting, and he has to make the defense pay. We don't need a role player to make those, but we need Dame to make those. So when Dame, a few times this offseason, has really got rolling from the mid-range, and here's what I would challenge coaches with, and just like you were talking about with either group, when you catch momentum, keep riding the momentum then. I don't care if we do it another 20 minutes in the workout, that 20 minutes, he rides that momentum that day, might be better than 10 minutes on Thursday, 10 minutes on Friday, 10 minutes on Saturday. And in a team setting, maybe it's shell drill and closeouts. Maybe it's transition offense, 3-on-2, 2-on-1, whatever it may be. If they're productive, like, and Phil Jackson used to talk about momentum the most with the Lakers and the Bulls and all his spirituality. And, like he'd talk about that all the time. So like, why not ride that momentum, build upon it more instead of you and not trade that time for time later that just might be average or inadequate. Does that make sense? So those two things we started to do a ton, and the players love it.
Totally makes sense and super convicting for me. And what I love about doing this is there's always at least one thing that I am in the middle of the talk and I realize, golly, I really needed to hear that. And I'm sure in our time there'll be more than just one thing. In most talks there are, but that was, I do that. That's right. I wanted to almost stop you, but like, Coach, that's me. Like I'm the guy with even my own son here at Faith. We'll be working and he's just struggling with a finish. Maybe the spin, maybe just hitting the board at the wrong time. Miss. All right, keep going. And he gets it. I'm like, all right, next thing. And like, what a dumb thing to do, because like the odds of him, like from that one rep, okay, if I just take the 5 and 4 of them were wrong or off the mark, needed some more adjustments, and he gets one right, do I really think that the 80%, like which one is he going to do again? in the
Yeah.
future if we stop right there. He's going to do the 80%, not the 20%.
Yeah.
So I've got to go longer, deeper to change that math to where now all of a sudden, okay, we're at 50-50. Oh, man, hey, we're 60-40 doing it
Yeah.
right.
There you go.
And then maybe the next workout when we hit it again, it's 80-20, maybe the other flip. But what are the odds that he just magically becomes confident and good at something when we embrace the struggle. I celebrate the try, like Gannon Baker
Yeah.
says, and we're moving through it. But I stop short at not only mastery, but man, I'm feeling good about what you're doing.
Yeah. Yep. We always say this. It's our job. I tell players this all the time. It's their job to feel it. It's my job to teach it. You get out there and feel it and repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. We'll keep teaching you. We'll stick with it. And even going back to your whole practice plan, like you just said about Gannon, who's a good friend of mine as well. But one of our player standards about being a professional or being on time or hardworking or committed. Those are kind of our four standards of anyone who wants to work with us. But like we always say, we don't coach effort, which most coaches say, right? But we put a comma on that. We say we don't coach effort, comma, we applaud mistakes. Because we had 30 of the top players in the country, like we just talked about. And we're doing walking pounds, pounding the ball super hard with the level of speed and force that they're not used to. And it gave me goosebumps at camp because we've had a lot of these coaches for 3 years now at camp, and they understand our standards. And kids lost the ball. And I promise you, 4 coaches just started like, there you go. You're dribbling it so hard you lost the ball. But guess what? By day 3 of camp, now we've done this ball handling progression 5 different times. They're not losing the ball. But we had to applaud the mistake and get them to work through that day 1 and day 2.
You made a great point too about when you have momentum within a practice, not to stop it. Like one of my things is like joy. Let's have joy be all throughout our gym and everything that we do. Joy within the process and of making mistakes, but in practice, I'm thinking back to times where maybe we're playing a small-sided game or a 3 possession game or a game where they have to win on a certain order of operations,
Yeah, yeah.
and they do it, and they have to celebrate like they won, and they're having so much joy, like, hey, that's awesome. All right, next thing, let's go. What if, coach, I would have just let's run it back. Hey,
Yeah.
fellas, you want to play that again? Like, get their ideas on it because you already talked about asking their performance-based questions. What if
Yeah.
we ask, man, hey, that we've just played 3-on-3 with no dribbles, a little bit of a grind, fellas. You good with that, or do we want to do it again?
No
Like,
kidding.
golly, like gives
Matt,
more ownership
let
to
me
them.
ask
That's
let me
huge.
ask you this question because I learned some of this from working with Evan Turner. Played 10 years in the league, National Player of the Year at Ohio State, one of the best
Yeah.
humans ever been around. He had so many great things because he played for Brad Stevens, worked for Brad in Boston, played for Thad Matta. He's been around all these great coaches, and I trained him for a year at the end of his career. And selfishly, it was like a clinic every day. I'm like, I have Evan Turner notes of things he would say or teach me. I'm like,
Wow.
I that to myself. But what I learned from him is like, if you want to know you're really good at what you do, or if your players are enjoying it, or if that drill works, the players will tell you for the most part. And I've coached for 15 years, and it took a 10-year pro to tell me that. And now, granted, I know players aren't going to like conditioning or defensive slides. Hey, that's where we're still the adult or the parent, and all discipline and, all that type of stuff. But he was like, if you want to know this drill's really good, ask your players if they like it or not. Now, granted, if they don't like it because it's hard, that's a different story. So here's what I would ask you, and I wish I would have done this coaching at the college level, and we did it a little bit at Boise. But when you have momentum, let's say you're playing Friday night, okay, high school game
Yeah.
Friday night, that team runs a heck of a zone in your league or in your district, whatever it may be. And you don't have a game all week, right? You don't have a game. So you get Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday's light, Thursday's a practice, Friday's the game. You're going to work on zone offense all week, right? Preparing for that zone. When you catch fire against that zone, even if it's the scout team, as a leader and as a coach, then you say, well, it's just scout team. All right, let's get to the next thing, or let's put in another quick hitter. why not let the kids just keep peppering that zone and playing and learning how to make plays and cutting? And because here's my question to you: isn't like 30 minutes of great work on a Tuesday better than 10 minutes, pardon my language, of shitty work on Wednesday and Thursday?
No
Like
doubt.
screw the 10 minutes because
Yeah.
they're just stymied or don't
Yeah.
want to do it or what. So, like, have you ever been through that, or do you think I'm on base with that? I just think there's so much more where I'd rather, just like in business and working with entrepreneurs now, I want a great return on my investment. So, if I'm going to put 30 minutes in of zone preparation this week, do I have to have 10 every day, or do I want maybe 20 great minutes one day and 10 really good minutes the next? Don't even do it the other day. I'd
Yeah.
love your opinion on that. What you think?
Well, yeah. Well, I think you're right on the money, but I think it goes back to the almighty practice plan that we have. Like, I've well, who was it? Maybe Tyler Costin has said you got to look at what you did last year at this time. You got to take 10% out. Like
Yeah.
you got to keep taking things out. I think what would keep a lot of coaches, and maybe I was like that at some point, from being able to ride that wave is what all other things we have to do that day.
No
But
question. Yeah.
but then
Yeah.
again, I really like to talk with coaches about freedom, not just freedom in play and giving players more options and what does Chris Oliver say? He says opportunities than musts.
Oh
Right,
yeah.
like this is an
Yeah.
opportunity for us to stay in this, get deeper. We're gonna hit it. I was planning on hitting it the next couple days anyway. Let's just stay and have the freedom to push things to the side.
No
Like
question.
don't have that worry of golly, I'm a bad coach because we didn't go over our out of bounds plays again. Like think of the things that we spend our time on that they already get. Instead of doing 5-on-0 of shell again, let's play more and let's learn more from that. But
Yeah.
I mean, when all those breakdown drills, when you feel like they're the most important thing, then I think you are reluctant to give up that time.
I agree. And I know it goes into one of the questions, you said you wanted to probably talk about like what makes what we do different, here, like
Yeah.
training and whatnot. And we could talk about that. But I think so much of what you're saying is what I struggled with as a coach. Whether it's you feel so good about breakdown drills or we got to do more shell or more out of bounds. But when you look at it intrinsically, and I don't mind, sharing some of my coaching story or my personal background. I grew up with a super tough, broken, traumatic family life. So I am a kid. Think about this, and I'm going somewhere, especially for coaches, listen to this podcast, and any of them could reach out to me anytime. I don't mind sharing or trying to help. And again, I'm still working on this stuff. I got a meeting with my therapist this week, man. But I grew up this goes back to what you were saying, but think about it. I grew up with a ton of uncertainty and a ton of chaos. That was the environment because of family struggles and whether it was violence, drug abuse, whatever. So when I came home from 6th grade through high school, I didn't know what I was walking into. There's a lot of uncertainty and chaos. And Tony Robbins talks about this a lot too, with like 6 humans needs. There's 6 human needs we all need, or we all need to feel a certain way, but we want to be loved. We want to be affirmed, we want to be accepted, all these different things. So if Phil Beckner can get really good at controlling my environment and controlling my circumstances, I now avoid the chaos and the uncertainty I grew up with. So what do you think I am? I'm a control freak. I am
Yeah.
type A, Matt. Like you would believe. My house is clean. Cleaners come over. My laptop, my notes. So therefore, as a coach, when we want to feel secure or we want to feel affirmed or prepared, and we don't want that uncertainty or chaos to screw us up so we lose or we're called a loser or we're letting people down or letting our family down or our players down, what do we try to do? And I've had to work on this a lot personally and professionally. We try to control outcomes. Same thing in player development. Like we try to control that player and their outcomes. And whether it's freedom of decision making, freedom of development, all of those different things, we do those extra out of bounds plays because we think we're controlling an outcome. And we think like we're developing a sense of security in ourselves that we develop that box. And if we do that, we won't lose the game because of that. Because on the other side of all these emotions, what drives so much of us, and I'm not trying to go too deep here, but it's
Sounds good.
fear. It's
Yeah.
fear.
No doubt.
And we could say, well, I'm not scared. I'm not. No, most people are scared of dying. Most people are scared of not being loved. Most people are scared of being judged. Most people are scared of failing. Most people are scared they're going to get to that big high school game on Friday night and lose and say, I knew we should have spent 10 more minutes on zone. That ain't it. And like I said, sharing a little bit of my stuff, I grew up a certain way. So I definitely try to control to an extreme level and even an unhealthy level at times. And that's where you get into whether it's coaching development, player development, human development, all this stuff that we're all trying to grow and get better at. That's where when you start taking a deep dive, you could really, really, really start making some progress. And like you said earlier, not so much staying in the gray area, because the gray area, we know that's where the mediocre people live. We want to live on one side or the other. Hey, we don't want to be lukewarm. That's biblical too, right? Like we don't want to be lukewarm. You're lukewarm, we're going to spit you out. We don't want to stay in the gray. So, man, if you really want to accelerate progress and you really want to get better, I think you start looking at some of these intrinsic things of, like you said, and say I'm coaching you 8 years ago, we'd be laughing at ourselves. But I'm like, Matt, why is your damn practice plan 4 pages long? It ain't because you're trying to give the coaches the best chance to win. It's because you're trying to control an outcome, or you're trying to make sure you're not fearful. Like, sorry, I get passionate, but those are things that like I'm trying to dive into, whether it's with the college team, the pro guys I train, high school teams I speak to, whatever it may be. Those are the things we're trying to do from a deeper level to really figure out some of the progress we can make and the results we desire.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.